Scroungers.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 9th episode of the Scroungers podcast. I am your host, Eyup Lovely from the internet. The hated Eyup Lovely at the minute, really. The loathed, the despised, the crucified Eyup Lovely from the internet. And I'm joined, as ever, by my quite floral, Hawaiian-looking co-host this week, the hapless homo, Jacob Venom Snake. Please say hello, Jacob.
Hello, and it honestly is a miracle I've managed to make it today after an absolutely brutal weekend bender.
I mean, it's a miracle you're wearing a shirt.
Yeah, but I have to be polite.
It hasn't stopped you before. I'm also joined by fan favourite co-host Dave number 7, who I do believe is from Notley. Dave, please say hello.
Hello. Nottingley. Not Notley. Not sure where you got that from. Nottingley.
Well, it's near me, I think. It's not far off, really. So I've probably said it right.
About 20 miles.
And it's been a little while since we've spoke to you about things that aren't deathly, gravely serious. So this week, we're gonna rifle through a couple of things that have been going on. You know, there is really so much shit going on, and all of it's bad. But I suppose to kick things off on a light note, we should begin with a little bit of pedo news. For which I assume I will now be playing a pedo news theme song. Commissioned an original piece of music, because that's how seriously we take this at least bi-weekly segment. This week's pedo news involves a previous character explored on this show, the senior aide to Wes Streeting, Samuel Gold, who pled guilty recently to exposing himself to an underage girl. He got sacked by Wes Streeting, who says he's never heard of me. You think I heard of that? My most senior? There's no bloody chance in hell. But Wes Streeting's former aide Samuel Gould, a man who exposed his penis to a child, has been given a suspended sentence. So that is your uplifting paedophile news. There's also an addendum to this week's pedo news, some brand new breaking pedo news. In the fan favourite friend of the show, Owen Jones, just interviewed a sex offender, an Israeli sex offender, I think.
Would you believe it? I mean, at that point, it's just redundant. You can just say Israeli. And
Just rewind here, right, first of all. Because I would like to be clear. Wes Streeting's former most senior aide, Samuel Gould, who pled guilty to exposing himself to a child, was caught by a 13-year-old girl masturbating in his parked car. He was also seen by a woman and other witnesses. It says Wes Streeting's most senior former aide Samuel Gould was masturbating in front of a 13-year-old girl in his car with the windows rolled down. Mr. Streeting says he is horrified by this, and as soon as he was made aware of his arrest, he was suspended from the Labour Party, which, you know, it's great that they don't rush to judgment. You know, it's not an expulsion. It's just a suspension. Come back when you've sorted it all out.
3 months of no wanking in front of teenagers and we'll let you back in. Can you handle that?
Yeah. He has received a suspended sentence, so he will not see the inside of a jail, like so many other of our favourite Labour Party paedophiles or assaulted sex offenders. And for 7 years, he will be unable to contact girls under the age of 18.
Oh, thank God for that.
Oh,
That'll
7
stop him.
years. You know,
It's like banning a serial killer. All right, no more murders.
he's a young man. 7 years will fly by, and he was also ordered to pay £239, which, you know, that seems like fair's fair.
I mean, you know, Wes is absolutely fucking seething with embarrassment just because the guy got caught. It's like very sloppy and amateurish.
Yeah.
Like, Wes has absolutely butchered and devoured maybe dozens of young men and cannibalized them to get rid of all the evidence.
Trillions.
Whereas this guy's having a sloppy wank in his fucking car in front of a girl. It's just, it's not on, man.
It's laughable in its absurdity, but obviously it's terrible for the young girl. But it's also terrible for the pedestrian woman who was walking her dog and had to see this revolting ginger
Did the dog
man.
see it too? Did he have to pay damages to the dog?
This hideous ginger man who was doubtless beet red as he was doing it. Just wanking himself silly in his car. And
also bears suspicious resemblance to another friend of the show, James Medway.
James Medway, the stupidest cunt, I think, in Britain. A McDonaldite to his core. James Medway he's a numbers man. He's a money man. He went to the London School of Economics, I do believe, and he has been fishing for a job under Rachel Reeves for something like 5 years now. He hasn't yet received one. He was previously an advisor, I think, to John McDonnell. My favourite thing about James Medway, James Medwadge, I suppose we should say, because that is what he goes by. If you go on Twitter and search /Medwadge, MEADWAJ space Glee, you can find his almost weekly thoughts on the hit Fox musical sitcom, wherein he concludes that Glee would be much better if nobody sang in it. It was just a show about sad high schoolers.
Yeah, that's a bit suspicious, isn't it? Do you know what it reminds me? Like, Euphoria is like Israel's maybe most famous cultural export. And it's about high schoolers having sex.
Yeah, and they had to get Drake to executive produce it because he is the analogous paedophile figure in Western culture. I mean, some terrible things going on the set of Euphoria. I mean, Euphoria's fucking Jim will fix it.
I really liked, I think, was it David Lammy who has like 5,000 tweets about Homeland?
It's David Lammy, yes. The Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom has 1 bajillion tweets about Homeland. My favourite one is where he says, this would be an absolutely perfect series finale. You need never make one more episode of this programme, which I love to my core, because you have done it perfectly. You have mastered how to end a programme. And then Homeland continued for 7 more seasons.
Oh, fuck. That was someone I was going to bring up. He's such a fake bastard, honestly. I love the one where he says I don't know what the fuck he was thinking when he says he thinks he looks like Denzel Washington.
Yeah, basically, there's for the listeners, on Twitter you can get, I emotionally abused this journalist from the Daily Express into making a list of all of the people in Parliament. And on the Twitter advanced search, you can search list, and then the number of the list. And it goes through all of their tweets. I used to enjoy when I couldn't sleep, just searching rude words into it. There was that one Labour MP who got in a lot of trouble after I searched and found a tweet where she called Estonians retarded. And I shared that, and by the time I woke up, Elon Musk was calling for her resignation. I advise all listeners to take up that hobby, search rude words, but also to search films. It is incredibly funny learning just how uncultured these people are. Wes Streeting was getting Star Wars toys for Christmas at the age of 33 or something. They all just love just complete and utter.
Is that the day he ate his poor mum out?
Yeah, and obviously, famously, Wes Streeting once tweeted about forming cunnilingus. I do believe, put his tongue and mouth inside his mother's vagina, whom he described as much poorer for having gone through it, I believe, is how that is structured.
Well, I can't imagine he's much of an expert.
No, not at all. But yeah, David Lammy has some of the worst tastes in cinema I've ever seen. Actually, it's really fucking annoying, to be honest, that he's foreign secretary now, because he spent fucking 10, 15 years just wanking over every TV show that's about being a spook or a spook diplomat or whatever else. So can you imagine being Ben Judah in that office and David Lammy's just going, it's just like Homeland, actually. Homeland. Perfect ending. One of the best tweets of all time is by Diane Abbott. I found it by searching through the MP list for the word porn.
Yes.
You can type in popular child's website like Poco Men and pop-up for porn appear. Now, obviously, that just means that Diane Abbott's son was downloading all kinds of porn. All kinds of porn and viruses to the family computer in 2013. But it is very funny that she thought it was called Poco Men.
I'm sure the women getting poked, all right.
Yeah. And I mean, it's no worse than what fucking Jacob used to do to family computer. This is mostly it's an anti-porn podcast, probably. Maybe neutral on the ethics of being a porn star. But you can't deny that the porn industry, a lot of those big wigs, rabbis, or they have some kind of arrangement with the IDF where every time you have a wank, it sends a new missile. In effect, porn should be illegal and you should be executed for viewing it.
By the way, my OnlyFans is coming out soon for anyone interested.
Yeah. And if anyone wants to get angry at me about that, I don't actually believe that. I believe.
Please forward all complaints to Les the Croc when it comes to issues with pornographic consumption.
As a blanket rule, if you're listening to the show and you hear something that I say that you find offensive to your worldview, I don't think that I think what you think. But to get back to Pedo news, Pedo update, really. Owen Jones today interviewed an Israeli, one of the good Israelis, that's the type of brand of Israeli he has them on often. The ones that think we should continue with Israel doing everything that it's currently doing, but they should look sad about it. Or reduce the amount of rape by like 3%. Figures like Owen Jones in the liberal two-state solution media. Love to have these people on as an example of, I don't know, a non-existent Israeli resistance. The Israeli left doesn't exist, but this guy's not on the left in any capacity. He interviewed today Shaiel Ben-Ephraim, which I believe is how you say that.
I wish you'd get some fucking normal names over there.
Yeah, I actively try to treat these names with the respect that any name necessitates. Owen Jones interviewed this Israeli academic titled, I Was Wrong About Gaza Genocide. Now, if you are at all familiar with Shaiel Ben-Ephraim, you'll note that he is one of these people on Twitter who, I don't know what they call themselves, but they certainly love invoking the word Pallywood, where they insist that Gaza is actually Disneyland with these great decadent malls and a thriving outdoor cafe culture, and that there is a mass conspiracy of the people in Gaza to falsify footage and images of children who have been shot, maimed, lost limbs, bullets through the skull, videos of dead children, but also incontrovertible medical evidence, they say, about x-rays. They like to allege that there is some kind of group of facilitators in Gaza that have special effects makeup teams and practical effects makeup teams. And
yeah, they got the guy from The Thing to do it for them.
Yeah, to falsify what is realistically hundreds, if not thousands, of different historically appalling videos and images per month. Complete nonsense. This person is one of the worst.
There was a famous version where, like, there's that picture of, like, this little girl who's just basically been splattered against the wall by an airstrike, limbs missing, just hanging off, and he's in the reply saying, "It's AI generated. It's an AI generated, you idiot."
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think you really get second chances for doing active Holocaust now, which is nice that Israeli Jews get to do their own version of that now, but it is fucking disgusting, and he should be killed for that alone.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck this guy's deal is. He has spent the last 18 months going on Twitter, like Jacob says, responding to incontrovertible evidence of children being slaughtered and mangled and eviscerated, saying that it's AI, which it obviously isn't, because you have to be a fucking idiot to fall for anything like that. And I'm not a fucking idiot, and most people aren't. Or they say that it is created with special effects or makeup effects or practical effects. For all of them, every single fucking video that comes out. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Doesn't matter how graphic it is. Doesn't matter the age of the deceased or even the depth of the injury. They just denounce every single bit of footage, every picture as fake. This is who this guy is. Shaiel Ben-Ephraim, one of the good Israelis that Owen Jones has just given, an hour and a half of his YouTube channel to. And I don't know if he's trying to pivot, because how long is it sustainable for these people to continue to advocate for at the very least, a government and a present administration, although it's baked into the ideology of the nation as a concept. The actions of a government that will invariably, I would imagine, though it might take some time, see some serious consequences. I could see a world where the ICJ and ICC do manage to prosecute Netanyahu. It would be a sacrificial thing so that they could continue the Zionist occupation under a new smiley Israeli Barack Obama figure. I feel like there is an element of the people who might have described themselves as Israeli moderates or on the Israeli left, who are notably blunting their rhetoric and notably pivoting away. Obviously, their criticism is almost laser focused on Netanyahu, because they cannot disagree ideologically with the presence of the Zionists in Palestine, because it is to their core that they believe they have an ancient 3,000-year-old ancestral right to that land. But they could
more
dress
like
it up
ancestral, the fucking bog-eyed, goofy-looking cunts.
Hey!
Hey!
That was very rude.
But
I do concur, to be honest.
I think with the sort of denial thing, the Pallywood shit, I think very few of them actually do believe that angle, that they think it's just this massive conspiracy.
It's not long ago fucking Owen Jones believed that angle. Owen Jones, 2020, in his book, writes there has never been any attempt to physically exterminate the Palestinian people.
Yes, yeah.
That is what he writes, and that is the dictionary definition of Nakba denialism, genocide denialism, of historical revisionism, and he gets away with it. Who gives a shit? You can just write that, and then you can make millions off pretending to care about Palestine.
I think with the denial thing as well is that very few Israelis or Zionists around the world believe that it's fake. With a lot of them, it seems to be they're deliberately taunting. They know it's such an infuriating thing to say, and it's very cruel, and it mocks the fucking actual victims that we can all see. It's this classic fascist thing of never ever arguing or making any point in good faith. It is to frustrate and enrage you and make you exhausted and to demoralize you.
I mean,
that's the type of person Owen Jones thinks it's appropriate to have on his show to try and rehabilitate the image of Israel.
I've encountered these people a fucking million times over. It's almost like it's crafted a specific taunt against the fact that you can't particularly get journalists in there. You can't get fucking aid in there. Like anything that's going on in Israel, it's impossible to verify the numbers of the dead. I think Ralph Nader did an approximation some months ago of over 500,000, but because international media likes to discredit what they call the Hamas-run health ministry, and they also need to dig up tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people from underneath the rubble, the concrete that they have rained on them. The true scope of the casualties of Israel's genocide in Gaza, we won't know for 5, 10 years, at which point they will also continue to deny it. But right now, they are able to deny it because they are sealed off. And it's been true for a long time that Gaza is an open-air prison. But it's seeming more like a closed prison. It's seeming more like a dungeon. Things can't get in and people can't get out. I believe even the other day, the US was arguing in the UN that Israel does not actually need to allow any aid whatsoever in because of their concerns about the UNHCR having employees in some way affiliated with Hamas and had advanced knowledge of October 7th. Obviously, it's nonsense. It's also a fundamental misunderstanding of what Hamas is. Israel also had prior advanced knowledge of October 7th. They had the most advanced knowledge of October 7th of anyone. It's trite to say, but it is literally every accusation is a confession. The Israelis have taken to its absolute extreme the idea of just directly accusing the people you are killing of killing you. We might talk about it in an episode of its own, but there's a part in Louis Theroux's most recent documentary where they're in that guy's house, that Zionist, and he is describing a genocidal theological death cult, and he's describing Palestinians as a citizen of Israel. If you said those words to me, one place would pop in my mind, and I think that would be the case for the vast majority of people, and it's Israel. And yet they feel comfortable just accusing Palestinians at large of that.
I think a lot of them are panicking as well. I think that's why you're going to see a sort of weird attempt from guys like that hideous pug-faced paedophile that Owen Jones thought was appropriate to interview, is that it's like, I don't think they anticipated this much loss of sort of global public support or any kind of sympathy. And to become such a pariah state, because it's going to be a stain that will follow them for as long as that wretched little shithole continues to exist. Yeah. And it's probably not going to fade away. And I think they're panicking, realizing now that it's just, especially if the US loses hegemonic power, who else do they have left at that point when they've alienated so much of the human race?
Yeah. I genuinely don't know. It's like the question is Israel an imperial project? Because technically it's not part of an empire, but is it an extension of empire? There's definitely colonial. There's definitely settler colonialism. Were they doing that on behalf of different world powers? They came from all over Europe, but there was a very focused, streamlined campaign to force migration. But thus you can't say they all came from fucking Poland, they all came from fucking wherever. But it was certainly enabled explicitly by the British Empire, and today enabled by the American Empire. If America does lose hegemony, if we either a significantly more multipolar world or a significantly more hegemonic world under the Chinese century, I don't know what that means for Israel. I just know that they will approach it in every single way as horrendously as you could conceive any response. They're not only ungrateful, demanding, narcissistic, Jewish supremacists, violent, bloodthirsty monsters, but they're also very petulant and petty. It's like the Netanyahus bring all their dirty clothes when they go and visit America. They bring them all in suitcases, so the American diplomatic staff have to wash their shitty underpants. There's a level of petulance, of pettiness, of spite. Well, like they bugged Boris Johnson's bathroom.
God, imagine hearing those monster ripper shits, though.
Zob, Zionist-occupied bathroom. They are flagrant in the way that they act. Certainly during the Biden administration, it appeared that Israel as a state was trying to do everything in its power to demonstrate what a weak, useless, demented cunt he is, and how they just walk him every day.
And he was a lifelong rabid Zionist.
Yeah. Like that is his only consistently held belief throughout his entire career, and he used to be able to articulate it quite effectively. Even though it's a monstrous, morally abominable position, he used to be able to make talking points. Then when he was in office, it appeared like Netanyahu hated him. At least the way that they treated him.
It really can't be overstated how fucking ungrateful they are. Billions and billions of dollars, unlimited funding, carte blanche to do whatever the fuck they want. And they were so brats about it because the West had to do the bare minimum saving face and saying, oh, you can still do that, but just we're going to say, oh, it's a bit much, chief, yikes. And that drove them fucking insane that they weren't even given the sort of like fucking Heil Hitler, go ahead, lads, nuke them all kind of rhetoric sort of response. Horrible little bastards. It's a country of like not like serial killers of children, which they are, but I mean like John Venables,
Yeah.
It's like, I think it's worth people to always consider that the Samson doctrine is in place. Even if it's completely their own fault, there are no external factors at play significant enough to push them to this point. If they start eating each other alive and collapse the whole fucking thing themselves, they will probably launch enough nukes to glass half the Middle East and probably Europe as well, out of spite.
There are a lot of people who believe that they used a tactical nuke a couple of times in the last 18 months just because, I don't know, it's beyond my pay grade. I imagine nuclear weapons are obviously significantly more precision than any other time that they have been deployed. If they did the Samson option, where? Fucking straight Tel Aviv, the Knesset, Mossad, or a big one that takes out Iran, and then the long nuclear winter blows into all of these further away countries. How much of the world are they willing to destroy?
I think the extent of where their missiles can reach is kind of Rome. I think
it can't go any further than that.
A few months back, you know how about 3 or 5 years ago, the Saudis they posted that picture of a plane flying into the tower in Canada. A few months back, the Israelis did something similar, and it was something like a nuclear explosion over the Colosseum, like a very obvious threat that if you don't let us get away with this is what's coming. And the attitude you spoke about them having, the very childish, demanding, petulant thing, very similar to Ukraine. And Zelensky, obviously, has a certain something in common with the Israeli people.
Oh, boy. There was a marked difference. Obviously, it wasn't the next day, but Zelensky he crashed the fuck out in the White House. And then maybe 90 days later, they had Netanyahu in there. Netanyahu, at the very least, knows how to shake hands, and he knows how to smile, and he knows how to say, yes, sir, thank you, sir, 3 bags full, sir. Whereas Zelensky is sniffed off his fucking bonds. You want missiles, sir? Next time I wear a costume for you. It's like, yeah, I'd be pissed off at that. I find Netanyahu as an individual maybe the single evilest person to ever live, and I think he looks like a cloven hooved demon. But he certainly
it's
seems
been very funny because if you've seen him when he was like young, he was a good-looking guy, and now he looks like he's more
good-looking guys.
No, just like a normal-looking guy. And then by now he's sort of like warped into a sort of decaying, sagging Adolf Hitler. Like even his hair sometimes gets styled the same way. He's like sagging, like it's just the gravity of how wretched he is just pulling him down into hell.
He's just so hideous, and you can tell
he looks like a meme. He looks like an anti-Semitic meme.
He does.
Yeah,
he's even got this.
He very much does. Yeah, some of those extremities seem to get larger every time.
The fucking ears are down to his balls.
We were talking about Owen Jones. I'd just like to clarify that with Owen Jones has made bajillions and bajillions and bajillions from his Substacks, Patreons, and all that bollock where he pretends to be a fucking anti-Zionist. I posted the other week, everyone got very angry, a clip where he was talking about anti-Semitism, and he described anti-Zionism as, he said, anti-Zionists recognize that Jews and Palestinians both belong there, nobody's going anywhere, and they both need to be secure there, and anyone saying anything to the contrary must be destroyed. And I posted that, and, aside from the textual Nakba denialism that he's written before in his last book, or the thing that he said in his last book about there being a necessity for a Jewish state in Palestine and how it is unmistakably different to European settler colonial projects. It's some of the things he's writing. It's like, add copy for a travel agents trying to make you holiday to Israel in 1970. Is this starry-eyed, just utopian society he's painting. It's fucking 2021. They said it didn't begin on October 7th. It didn't begin in fucking 2021 either.
No.
Nonetheless, he will ride that till the ends of the earth and make endless money, more money than anyone will ever know. And he will now routinely, as he constantly does, just host Israelis on for the Good Israeli Redemption Hour on his program. And you're supposed to accept this is fine. That a guy who 6 months ago was talking exactly like Adolf Hitler, if you replace the Jews with the Palestinians, you're supposed to accept that this guy has had a change of heart after seeing the dreg ends of an extermination campaign unparalleled in history. I don't believe that.
2021, when he's saying this, you already had the Great March of Return, 2018, 2019, where they killed several hundred Palestinians, but their main priority was deliberately kneecapping them, just blowing their fucking legs off. They did that to thousands of them, and that was a completely peaceful, non-violent protest. So, what other option have you left these people other than anything anything violent? That's their only thing now. They did everything that the nice, soft, squishy liberal Westerners wanted them to do. So now, really, their only bet is the guys in the Al-Qassam brigades because Israel will not respond to anything else.
In the Great March of Return, the snipers were deliberately shooting people who had the words paramedic pasted all over their clothing, deliberately and in ways that would, like you say, in the kneecap or the chest. And the Israelis often say, well, if this is a movement for egalitarianism, for freedom, then where is the Palestinian Gandhi? Where is the Palestinian Martin Luther King? And they killed whoever that is.
And thousands of times over.
Where is the Palestinian Malcolm X or Che Guevara? They killed him, and Owen Jones giddily shared the photos of his brain blasted out of his skull on Twitter. That's something that appalled me at the time when Yahya Sinwar was killed. Owen Jones, obviously no great fan of Hamas, a daily condemner of Hamas, routinely and continues to say that all members of Hamas and the senior leadership should be prosecuted for war crimes for October 7th. But he was sharing photos of Yahya Sinwar. His head exploded. You could see his brains, his face, just smashed into nothing. And Owen Jones was sharing that, and I just thought, would Owen Jones share a photo of Jo Cox after she'd been shot? Would Owen Jones share a photo of David Amis after he'd been stabbed to death? Would Owen Jones share a photo of any Western politician anywhere in the world after they had been brutally and in the most gruesome way slaughtered, and post it with almost a celebratory tone? Would he do that? No. But he'd certainly do it if it was in a country where people are not white and therefore are not equal amount of human to him. But enough about Owen Jones, Owen Jones said it a million times. Fuck this guy. What we want to talk about today is some of the other goings on. I suppose we could begin with the Kneecap. Kneecap, if you don't know, are a rap trio from West Belfast. They dress in balaclava. They are great proponents of the Irish language. They are Irish Republican, anti-colonial, aesthetically revolutionary rap group. Now, I would advise everyone, hitherto and henceforth, to treat any kind of group like this with massive suspicion. Because what happens is what invariably has happened here. Kneecap have element of provocation in their language, their performance, their vernacular, their lyrics. They recently had a very successful film documenting their journey upward. They've had their fair share of controversy historically. Most of this began when they performed at Coachella last month, I think. And at Coachella, they put on a big screen something to the effect of "Fuck Israel, Free Palestine" or whatever. And all of the international Israel lobby, the Zionists, the Israelis, all of the pearl-clutching genocideers got very, very angry and started kicking off about it. After hearing this tidal wave of discourse, the Community Security Trust combed through footage of performances they had made in Britain and found one where I believe they said something to the effect of "up Hamas, up Hezbollah," and some vague, non-specific instruction to kill your MP. The Community Security Trust is Israel lobby operation, a pressure group. They feed nonsense into the media all the time based on fictitious studies. If you ever see a headline that's like, anti-Semitism increases by 100 million% in a year, that's because you can click through Control F, Community Security Trust, and they will have provided the data because they consider things like saying Free Palestine as anti-Semitism. Threshold for what they consider anti-Semitism is absurd, just plainly absurd. And they are this agitating organisation that, it must be said, last year, Novara Media made a, in their words, sizable charitable contribution towards. So Novara Media, they received a cursory legal letter from the concerned, I believe it is the Autoglass Apartheid Emerald Mine bajillionaire Labour orbiter, whose son is hoping to become an MP. They published about this stuff, and it has been reported elsewhere, and it is verified true, but they are spineless, useless. Upon receiving any kind of legal notification whatsoever, they immediately negotiated to pay to two charities of the individual's choice, which was the World Central Kitchen and the Community Security Trust. The Community Security Trust has been reported by Owen Stanley in the Electronic Intifada, citing numerous sources as having received training directly from the Mossad in donations solicited under the promise of funding a people-powered media. Respectively, hundreds of thousands of pounds were funneled directly to a Mossad organisation that has now combed through all available footage of this band Kneecap performing in Britain and sent it on to counter-terror police. Promptly began investigating them, and there was some political interventions from all over the shop, from MPs, from the First Minister of Scotland, Downing Street, from everywhere else. They had numerous appearances cancelled at festivals and whatnot, as happens to anyone who sincerely supports these things in the public domain. Kneecap, specifically because it is a group branded in the iconography and the vernacular of armed resistance to colonial occupation vis-a-vis Britain in Ireland. Even the term kneecapping, it's like a black South African group called Necklacing. They are talking about...
Shout out to Winnie Mandela, by the way.
Yeah, shout out to Winnie Mandela. Shout out to the Mandelas as a whole. You did what you can. You did some pretty good stuff, to be fair.
Yeah,
Nelson Mandela also, people bastardise Nelson Mandela. David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, who studied at the School of Oriental and African Studies, when defending the police crackdown on Palestine protests, said that Nelson Mandela achieved an end to apartheid through peaceful means.
God. His wife was burning horrible bastards in fucking tires.
I know. They were probably more ruthless than the IRA. Kneecap in America, I believe they just had the projected images of Fuck Israel, Free Palestine or whatever performances in England. One of them shouted on stage, "Up Hamas, up Hezbollah." Both groups are banned in the UK. Hezbollah actually banned relatively recently, I think in 2018, by Sajid Javid as Home Secretary in response to a photo that was circulated by the papers of Jeremy Corbyn next to a man with a Hezbollah flag. So they decided to ban Hezbollah, formally prescribe it, just solely on that basis. Hamas, the political wing, was banned, not that many years ago. The military wing was banned by Blair in 2001. Therefore, providing material support for them is grounds for arrest and imprisonment. Although this would have been a great case to test that. I truly don't believe that they would have been prosecuted in any capacity whatsoever for...
Yeah, is that something you really want to make martyrs out of in this specific case?
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of things at play here as well. That they are on stage. It's a performance. Snoop Dogg smoked weed on stage. Gets away with that. Indoors as well. That's 2 crimes. You can say whatever you want as part of a performance, otherwise random West End actors would be getting locked up every night for playing a character that says, "I'm going to kill you." Because it would be taken as the earnest thoughts of the actor. They are performers on stage. The other main point of contention is non-specific call to murder your political representatives. Basically, shit that fucking Nirvana was saying. It's shit that, like, Run the Jewels have, like, fucking 4 songs about it. course you're allowed to say these things in music. Theresa May, Home Secretary, banned Tyler, the Creator, from Britain for like 3 years for having rude lyrics. That was the totality of any fucking backlash I saw for anything like that. There was a cyclone in the media against Kneecap, and they folded. I think this is a band that probably more than anything else has an audience who have become attuned to them through their support for Palestine, and they immediately put out a statement saying they do not and have never supported Hamas or Hezbollah.
Yeah, I've got it here. And they say they want you to believe words are more harmful than genocide. Establishment figures desperate to silence us have combed through hundreds of hours of footage and interviews, extracting a handful of words from months or years ago to manufacture moral hysteria. Let us be unequivocal. We do not and have never supported Hamas or Hezbollah. We condemn all attacks on civilians always. It is never okay. We know this more than anyone, given our nation's history. We also reject any suggestion that we would seek to incite violence against any MP or individual, ever. An extract of footage, deliberately taken out of all context, is now being exploited and weaponized as if it were a call to action. The distortion is not only absurd, it's a transparent effort to derail the real conversation. All 2 million Palestinian people in Gaza are currently being starved to death by Israel. At least 20,000 children in Gaza have been killed. The British government continues to supply arms to Israel, even after scores of NHS doctors warned Keir Starmer in August that children were being systematically executed with sniper shots to the head. Instead of defending innocent people or the principles of international law, the powerful in Britain have abetted slaughter and famine. This is where the real anger and outrage should be directed towards. To the Hamas and Cox families, we send our heartfelt apologies. We never intended to cause you hurt. Kneecap's message has always been and remains one of love, inclusion, and hope. This is why music resonates across generations, countries, classes, and cultures, and has brought hundreds of thousands of people to our gigs. No smear campaign will change that. Suddenly, days after calling out the US administration at Coachella to applause and solidarity, there is an avalanche of outrage and condemnation by the political classes of Britain. The real crimes are not in our performances. The real crimes are the silence and complicity of those in power. Shame on them. And it's funny to say all of that about, the ongoing genocide, the massively understated figure that I'm sick of being trotted out, 20,000. Like, at this point, you can just comfortably say 200.
Just an absolute fucking joke. If you are saying that, if you're saying 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, you're a fucking moron. You're an absolute fucking idiot.
It's at this point
you're such an idiot. You're such a stupid cunt that is actively endangering people's lives. Because you are vastly underselling the nature of what has happened here.
Because it is minimum is
mathematically impossible. It is mathematically impossible for it to be 20,000, 30,000, 40,000. You're looking at fucking 500,000. You'll be looking at more. These people trot this out because it is the only thing that they can cite definitively. Well, look at the means of acquiring those numbers. Look at the stipulations on confirming the death of an individual in these circumstances in that area, especially under the fucking Israeli boot on your neck and the international fucking press, all decrying the health service as this secret Hamas-run
health ministry.
It is absurd. And the statement by Kneecap, yada, yada, yada. This happens all the fucking time. Groups or bands or whatever come out of the gate, and I know everyone got very mad at me for suggesting that they knew. But I actually knew about Kneecap well before you did. They say all of this revolutionary shit. They bark it out constantly. And then the second that the Daily Mail get mad, they walk it all back. The second that MPs start saying things, they walk it all back. And that is because they start facing the prospect of not making money, at which point their morals are completely immaterial. The joke in all of this is that no one truly believes the things that they're saying. These are people who post videos and photos all over of them reading the speeches of Nasrallah, of Hamas figures, of Hezbollah. These are people who constantly talk about resistance. These are Irish people who suffered under the jackboot of British colonial occupation. There is no better analogue than the IRA to an organisation like Hamas. And in doing this, they are not only condemning Hamas, Hezbollah, but the very people who have fought for so long to limit the asphyxiation of Ireland by the Brits. And that extract itself, let's be unequivocal, we do not, have never supported Hamas or Hezbollah We condemn all attacks on civilians, always. It is never okay. We know this more than anyone, given our nation's history. Well, that is a bastardization of your nation's history. And it is an insult to a lot of people around the world. And it is a massive betrayal of the principles through which you have built your brand identity.
Yeah, if you're going to make that your brand identity,
profited explicitly. There are other bands out there, other musicians, other entertainment figures. You know, they sign the petitions and they say the right things, and nobody would ever ask them to publicly and explicitly endorse Hamas. But they did it as a marketing technique because it makes them money. It makes them money because there is a culturally underserved segment of society who believe with their whole soul that the most important thing going on right now in the world, as I do, as you do, is the genocide in Gaza, and who are willing to financially support any project that poses even a slight cultural threat to the hegemony of Zionism in entertainment, in media, in music, in art, in film. At the lightest bit of pressure, they folded. And everyone got very angry about this to me again. You know, whatever. I don't care. I'm right, is the long and the short of it. And they were saying to me, well, what would you have done? They were going to face up to 14 years in prison for the statement about killing MPs or whatever the fuck, which objectively would not have happened. Again, it was a performance on a stage. Certain artistic performances are exempt. You cannot prosecute for someone for saying something in a performance on stage. You just can't do that. Otherwise, how would you stage any production about Hitler? You'd have to get a new Hitler every night because he'd be banged up. And Kneecap have spent the last week just going crazy for Owen Jones. The shake hands emoji has never been used so frequently and with such fervour. It makes me sick. Owen Jones, until the exact moment that Kneecap denounced Hamas, and bear in mind, Kneecap, they're not a small topic, even internationally, but certainly nationally. The our media cover them, all the left media cover them, the fucking Guardian cover them, the fucking BBC cover them. Owen Jones, one of the most widely read and most popular journalists in this country, never posted or wrote or said the word Kneecap in any form until they condemned Hamas. At which point, he started complimenting their fearlessness.
He must have an extension on his computer that wherever anyone condemns Hamas, it sends a fucking blaring klaxon through his speakers.
He's got a Google
and says,
alert at the very least.
Yeah.
You know, it's absurd at this point. I would pay so much money for a video of Owen Jones listening to one Kneecap song.
I don't think we mentioned this. I also think we need to remind everyone that the guy he interviewed is an actual pedophile who would send unsolicited pictures to his underage students. And he doesn't condemn that, but he does condemn what the people of Palestine consider broadly to be heroic resistance fighters.
You know, similarly, Owen Jones has interviewed Vosh, a paedophile.
An actual paedophile.
Fawningly interviewed Vosh on his channel, a paedophile who describes his paedophilia as being focused largely on cartoon drawings of what he calls short stack goblins. He likes goblins and to look at their child goblin genitalia. And Owen Jones interviews him, and this Israeli genocide denialist sends photos of his cock to his underage students and spends every single day saying the most hideous, revolting, morally repugnant vitriol about Palestinians and people in Gaza. And Owen Jones interviews him because he's had a Damascus conversion. He has completely changed his mind. He is a new person now because he is able to criticize Netanyahu after 18, 19 months of a Holocaust.
Just to steal something Jacob often says, what is it that the British political and media class loves so much about child rape and murder?
We will never know because they don't answer my calls. And in this fucking Kneecap statement, I would like to hone in on their apology to the Ames and Cox families, to whom they never intended to cause any hurt. Now, let's be clear. David Ames, the MP who was assassinated,
fucking
knifed
chipped to death
a few years ago, the Tory MP, was about as right-wing as they come. Just a completely evil, demonic man. A man who objectively was complicit in the social murder of hundreds of thousands of people over the course of his career, at the very least, if not hundreds of thousands more in his parliamentary career with regard to military action and authorising that. And I'm not saying the person that killed him, that it was a noble act. I am not saying that it was the right thing to do. And I am not saying that he did it for the right reasons. But I'm saying, what do you actually believe? I can understand to some degree sending heartfelt apologies to the children of Joe Cox. Joe Cox was killed by a Nazi. That in itself is appalling. It's not right. Kneecap sent heartfelt apologies to Joe Cox's whole family, including her widowed husband, who is a sex offender.
As a massive sex pest, yeah.
These people...
The wrong Cox died.
Exactly. Brendan Cox, he pops up constantly, exclusively to just scold people by invoking his wife's death, saying, oh, you saying this is exactly the same as shooting my wife. It's like, oh, all right. Thank you, Brendan. Here's 10,000 likes. Here's 20,000 retweets. Here's an invite to the fucking latest charity gala, Brendan, where you can sexually prey on more and more people. You know, when Brendan Cox was outed as a sex offender, Jess Phillips was asked about it, I believe the very same day on Robert Peston's ITV show. And her exact response, I will quote verbatim, I like Brendan. He's my friend. This is how these people approach the issue of sexual impropriety, abuse, harassment, assault, and this metastasized through every single tier of the media as well.
With the Ames thing is even funnier as well, and you remember that he's was a leading member of the Conservative Friends of Israel. So if you think about what he would be saying today about what's going on, I just say comfortably that I'm glad he's dead.
Yeah, like think of the most hard-right Zionistic politician you can, and tell me that you would be bereaved if they were killed. And I want to be very clear here, because the police, I know you're coming one day, certainly when we have Kit Clarenberg on, but not just yet, because I am not inciting any assassinations. David Ames was an advocate for regime change in every fucking country on the face of the earth. He was at least a member or a proponent or a frequent guest of the National Council of Resistance of Iran, which is this Iranian organization in France, Albania, that functions effectively as a government in exile, though they have no hope of ever informing any kind of political change in Iran. It's just some USAID, CIA bullshit. But that is who David Ames is, aside from his appearance on Brass Eye, where he acts a complete fucking tit.
Holding that giant piece of cake.
Yeah, for those who aren't aware, David Ames featured on the drugs episode of Chris Morris's Brass Eye, where he was duped into believing that there was this new designer drug called cake that was making people, in the words of Bernard Manning, chuck the fucking guts up. And he mentioned it in Parliament to the government. He requested an inquiry into it just because it was something that Chris Morris told him on camera to make him seem like an idiot. And I believe he gets him to hold up like a stereo, and it's playing this insane, very quick noise. And he says, if you're on cake, that's slowed down. It feels like you're listening to music forever.
You know, it's just centuries.
It's literally just this complete nonsense, and he reads it with absolute surety. Though he might have been, you're a right character, Ames. A little bit of a fucking Alan Partridge, what's he like? He was also a demon, responsible for the death of endless amounts of people. One of the last things fucking Ames did in the public domain was say that the allegations against Harvey Weinstein were dubious, to say the least. The allegations against Harvey Weinstein are dubious, to say the least, and the sudden flurry of alleged inappropriate advances beggars belief. every single corner of every single merchant of death industry. He was in the corridors of it, smirking, smiling. They'd say he'd turn up to the opening of a letter. You get invited to some real nasty things in a position like David Ames. And if he'd turn up to the opening of a letter, I'm sure he would turn up to the opening of a child's torso. So basically what I'm saying is, Kneecap, yeah, whatever, they're spineless. It's fine. You're allowed to criticize musicians. You're certainly allowed to criticize musicians who completely betray their espoused principles. You are certainly allowed to criticize musicians who extensively profit off of the brand identity that they have built around opposition to colonial occupation, violent resistance to colonial occupation, the aesthetics, the vernacular, the language, the iconography, and then spent, 18 months on a social media campaign promoting their respect and ideological affinity for and with Hamas and Hezbollah. And the second the Daily Mail get angry, they say, we have never and never will and never have supported either of them. And any civilian death is a tragedy, to which they are obviously referring to October 7th and many of the civilian deaths erroneously attributed to Hamas, which we now know that many of them were just Israel killing the raw.
Yeah, Hannibal directive to the extreme, just absolutely fucking spraying them with missile fire and chain gun fire from Apache gunships.
And it's not possible that Kneecap don't know that.
It was widely disseminated at this point. I mean, it was known quite early on that the carnage and damage we saw.
Yeah, you just had to look at the cars.
What did he do that on the fucking Mario Karts that they flew in on with AK-47s?
It looked like the end of a fucking Transformers film. You know, what do these people think Hamas is equipped with? It's an organisation of resistance, of resilience, of
it's
unmet
concentration
courage,
camp prisoners fighting back.
It is patchwork. It is junkyard. They are using scraps and whatever they can get together, stones if necessary, to fight for the continued existence of their people and culture.
Actual heroes, the most brave and courageous people next to the fucking
Truths. Heroes. And when we say these things on the podcast, I wonder, certainly, at what point are we going to get a knock on the door? And I don't think anything would come of it. You know, they raided Hazel Winstanley over, they cited some insane police operation that no one had ever heard of. You know, they've arrested fucking Holocaust survivors or whatever for saying that what they distinguish as material support for Hamas. But what are we doing? An opinion about the moral character of these people. I support Hamas. I support Hezbollah. It is a binary conflict, and one of them is doing genocide. I support the opposite of that. And that, historically, is, though not legally binding, there's a UN General Assembly resolution that explicitly legitimizes and recognizes the legitimacy of armed resistance against colonial occupation, subjugation, etc. But I am supposed to discard what is international consensus in wake of World War II, which built international law some years later, but still in wake of it. I am supposed to disregard that for the wisdom of Tony Blair in the year 2001.
An actual thick twat, beaten only by Keir Starmer in terms of how fucking thick a prime minister has been.
If you agree with or respect anything done by Tony Blair, but certainly in the year 2001, you're beyond salvation. You're going to hell. And that is important that we tell the listeners here. Someone got sent to prison for 4 months for emailing Jess Phillips, the MP for Yardley in Birmingham. She's a monster.
Horseface bitch.
Emailing her, a South Asian British man, a Muslim man, and saying, you will go to hell for the way that she has voted over Gaza. And he was in prison for months.
It's funny as well to describe this Holocaust as it happens and then decry the supposed murder of Israeli civilians who, as we all know, around 98, 97, 99% of them support all of this violence and would have done even prior to October 7th. That was just their excuse. When we saw that actual operation commenced, it was attacking military outposts. I saw the videos of Al-Qassam guys absolutely fucking Swiss cheesing IDF soldiers. And they also attack settlers. Now, we don't really need to convince our audience that settlers deserve to die, but if you need a reminder That Louis Theroux show and the Ultra Zionist one from 2011, if you can watch that and think, oh yeah, these people deserve to live and they're not just degenerate fascist paramilitary psychopaths, backed, armed, supported by the government officially and unofficially, if you do not think they're legitimate targets, you have a dog-shit soul, you are spiritually weak, and you are worthless. And we do not want your voice or consideration in any serious political project. Fuck off.
Well, that was the fun segment of the show.
Yeah.
Lots of laughs in there. And thankfully, we have plenty more on the way. Because friend of the show, not friend of the show.
Arch enemy of the show.
Arch enemy of the show. Graham Glinner Linehan.
The sexiest man to ever live. We can disagree politically, but that guy is a fucking stud.
One of the most viscerally hideous men alive. His head is fucking massive.
His asteroided headed fucking... I'm not kidding. I think if you threw him back to any sort of like peasant village in the medieval era, like they would assume that he's some sort of actual child-eating cave ogre, and they'd start throwing rocks at his big ugly fucking face until it splits open like an overripe melon.
He looks like Simon Cowell playing the Elephant Man on stage, where you just have to contort your body instead of having any prosthetics.
All of his proportions are so fucked because he has like long skin. You should really like. Yeah. There's a great picture of him holding some guy, and his arms are like freakishly long and skinny, but he's also got this massive distended bloated torso and this giant fucking head with a Picasso face, where like the eyes are sort of 3 inches apart vertically. He looks like a 50-time stroke victim. His fucking face is melting off.
He looks like yes. He's
and
having
his manky fucking
strokes.
teeth.
Yeah, he's a nasty piece of shit.
And for some reason, loves posting endless pictures of topless teenage children.
Yeah, zoom ins on the crotch. Graham Linehan. Look, I haven't got the smoking gun for you, but I'll say it outright. Graham Linehan is a paedophile. There is no two ways about it. Graham Linehan created the IT Crowd and Father Ted, or at least co-created these things. And some years later, an episode of the IT Crowd was criticised for perhaps being transphobic. Graham Linehan decided to destroy his entire life, alienate his wife and children and colleagues, and destroy any semblance of wealth or success that he had, to become a daily advocate for making trans people miserable, ostensibly under the guise of protecting women and children. Now, the way that he campaigns on this front is usually through YouTube videos where he starts crying while shouting the name Stuart Lee or Bill Bailey or Limmy or any number of these people who don't respond to his emails anymore, John Ronson, all of these media figures that he emails, these grotesque things. There is a very odd dynamic going on, obviously, at Graham Linehan, one of the most prolific and famous transphobic individuals, but he has a inexplicable and largely hidden until recently resentment of J.K. Rowling for not defending him enough. But I think even J.K. Rowling looks at the things that Graham Linehan posts and says, what the fuck are you doing? Because J.K. Rowling, repulsive though she is, surely has questions about why when you go on Graham Linehan's feed, it is just endless fucking photos of underage transgender people who have undergone top surgery or have whatever, or have socially transitioned.
I genuinely don't know. I'm serious. I don't know how that's
legal. He
zooms
in on their bodies. It surely can't be.
It's at least harassment, incitement to hate or something.
He zooms in on their bodies, on their crotches, on their nipples, and whatever else, and posts it on Twitter. And he acts as if he's bullying them. But there is a very, very clear aura around the words he is using and the way it is presented that would seem to suggest he is masturbating as he's posting it. Now, Graham Linehan's wife was the sister of British comedian Peter Serafinowicz, I think is how you say his name. I believe his family cut Graham the fuck off. His wife certainly left him. He was shortly thereafter pictured in Asda, I think, buying all of the ingredients and the cutlery and the dishes and the cooking utensils to make a carbonara for one. And I do believe he lost access to his children for a while before, in recent months, moving to Arizona to live with similarly disgraced comic, albeit an American one, Rob Schneider. amongst these endless harassment campaigns, Graham Linehan has finally found himself charged with harassment and criminal damage, which took place at an event called the Battle of Ideas Conference in London in October. He has been charged and he is expected in court a week today. I'm not sure exactly what the criminal damage is, but I imagine it's something petty. I imagine he destroyed someone's phone or something.
I think the appropriate punishment probably would be, and I say this as someone who doesn't believe in capital punishment, probably be hung, drawn, and quartered, where I think would be an appropriate message to send to the public.
Yeah.
Broadcasted nationally on TV.
Linehan claims that the charge stemmed from a report by a transgender person, which, of course, I imagine that there are literally over 10,000 transgender people who have a valid criminal complaint to make about Graham Linehan. All of his posts are incredibly sexually charged, but it is also sexual harassment and is abusive, and all of these people have also been energized tenfold by the recent Supreme Court ruling, which has made Keir Starmer just start saying that transgender people are vermin or whatever. We're looking to do an episode about the CAS review and the Supreme Court ruling and the very unique phenomena of transphobia, or the liberal strand of transphobia that stems from England and Scotland in particular. But now I just wanted to smile, and I will continue to smile that Graham Linehan has been charged, and here's to many more. And I hope next week or whenever the trial is, I hope he is prosecuted, and I hope he goes to prison for life. And I hope while he's in that cell, he decides it's just not worth it. Go on.
I think there's two other things I remember. The first one is that he reminds me of, especially the sort of American transphobia on the far right, and how much of that seems to be fixated on children's own autonomy and how much that infuriates the American right.
Yeah.
It's a desire to control them genuinely sexually, and I imagine that's very much the same with Graham. And secondly, also, it's one of those rumors that's flown around that I remember reading about, like the Mumsnet corner of Twitter, where he's seen as a predatory creep because he won't stop sending pictures of his tiny, disgusting, mounty penis.
I've also heard this. It's very telling that the hotbed of extremism in the UK, which is Mumsnet, a forum previously...
It's our version of Stormfront, really.
Yeah, that is not an exaggeration. Until maybe 2015, Mumsnet was a board where mums spoke to each other about being mums, and occasionally a politician would go on there, and the mums would ask them what their favourite biscuit is, and then swiftly transformed into Kiwi Farms, Stormfront, just a website for disparaging, gang stalking, harassing, abusing, gaslighting, and promoting violence against transgender people. And it speaks volumes, I think, that this community think that Graham Linehan is a freak. There are a lot of people in that orbit, older women, I guess you're a fucking Mumsnet user, who say that Graham Linehan loves to send pictures of his disgusting little pecker.
It must be awful.
Rotten todger. Because
his mucky little
obviously
prick.
his wife has left him, and he has to try and get someone with the same exact ideological belief on gender identity as him, and that would require for him to meet someone who I guess is just a murderous psychopath with a psychosexual addiction to looking at children's crotches like him. And that's not happening, so he solicits it by sending his hideous pecker.
Like, considering how grotesque and malformed the rest of him is,
that
must be... he's doing, like, cheeky boil-style pictures of it where it's just hideous, like, close-ups with the most unflattering lighting possible.
He's probably got the Weinstein thing where it's just like a gangrenous, like semi-sack.
It's somehow got like really big like blackheads on it.
Yeah. I mean, he is hideous. And Graham, if you do manage to listen to this, you are never going to have a sexual relationship for the rest of your life. It would be better off for all of us if you submitted yourself for physical castration, not chemical, because we all know the chemical one's bullshit. We all know that's not going to suffice. You need the whole lot lopping off with a hot butter knife to fix the way that you think and act and behave, because you are horrendous. And I really, 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 really hope you have a life insurance policy that doesn't void from suicide, because it would be terrible for your children to receive nothing. Obviously, they are innocent in all this, and the proceeds of your work should go to people who are not constitutionally evil, like yourself. So try and negotiate that. One of my favourite, aside from the recent Graham Linehan tweet where he says, "Yes, please, tell me how a woman can nut." One of my favourite...
The female orgasm, that myth.
I love that he's got into that. It should be noted, Graham Linehan used to be a nominal leftist. He used to be
pro-Palestine, and that changed.
Yeah, he used to be pro-Palestine, didn't he? Until, something happened about his worldview and the type of content he started viewing and where that he started thinking and the dreams that he started having and
the sex pest behavior.
Searching. But it can't be understated. When Donald Trump was fucking inaugurated for the first time, Graham Linehan was one of these people speaking like you were about to witness the, American Auschwitz, just the complete dominion of the world, that it was over forever, that the nukes would be dropped within 6 months. And then very quickly, within less than 10 years, he is an advocate for it. And his favourite refrain is, the world's gone so mad, a man like Donald Trump is the only one talking sense. And it's like, yeah, well, you would say that, wouldn't you, Graham? Everyone's mad but me. All my friends hate me, but it's their fault. Like, maybe you're just a horrendous, awful person, a freak, someone with a very, very obvious fetish that you force onto people. He now posts his weird, fetishistic stalking of teenagers and pays for them to be ads on Twitter. This is a man, he's verified, he got hundreds of thousands of fucking views. He wrote countless awards. He wrote several extremely widely syndicated sitcoms. And he's paying Twitter to advertise his tweets where he analyzes the shadows on the crotch of a child, or he zooms in on the surgery scars beneath the nipple of a child, and he pays to have that disseminated to more people. And I can't imagine he is spending a low amount of money doing that. And he thinks that he has been vindicated somewhat with the ruling in the Supreme Court and Starmer. He thinks that they have won. But in reality, the normal person doesn't understand this whatsoever. And the normal person just thinks, why don't we just be nice and let people say what they want and yada, yada, yada. And then Graham starts wanking on about you about fucking, but what about the lesbians? What about the lesbians? What about lesbians for sure? What about when they go in the bathroom? And it's all just nonsense.
They should be fucking scared of him.
They should be fucking scared of him. And his life has culminated in this sort of epic Shakespearean tragedy, I believe the apex of which, you can search whenever I'm back on Twitter. You can search through my post to find him in July in a Scottish sectarian football bar singing what he has described as his favourite ever song, Fairy Tale of New York. And it's heartbreaking. I despise the man, but it makes me want to kill myself watching that, because it's like, I think he's even wearing shorts. It's probably a warm July night.
It's like Raging Bull when he's doing the stand-up, and it's just awful.
He's in a Rangers bar, and there's this like old sort of turf women, Scottish women. Transphobia is big in Scotland because of a fucking security services operation to push it there, to dismantle the SNP. He's next to these Scottish women who are transphobes. But I think the recurring sadness, the pathos of all of this is that whenever you see Graham Linehan in these circles, whenever you see him associating with these people, you know he won't be caught dead with them before he was completely ostracised from entertainment for having the public internet habits of a very dangerous paedophile.
I think a note of positivity that our listeners can dwell on in dark moments is that it may seem like, and in a sense, yes, it's absolutely true, all of the worst and most evil people in the world seem to be winning constantly, but absolutely none of them are happy whatsoever.
Yeah, miserable.
They are miserable. Even in victory, it is ash in their mouths, and it's hysterically funny. Laugh at them, enjoy it.
Graham Linehan has destroyed his entire life for, that he's spent all these years campaigning for, that he has lost his children and his wife and his home and his livelihood and his career and all of his friends for, that he has turned. And he's still, on the day of that monumental success in his eyes. He is tweeting incessantly. He is posting just constant nonsense. And in that day, I guess because he couldn't be seen as anything but ecstatic over the ruling, that he had to find other things to talk about, he just spent the whole day condemning Hamas instead. Which is the other side of his personality. I presume he probably has at least investigated real estate in Tel Aviv. Although, they love to paint Tel Aviv as this Western liberal gay paradise. But Mitzvah is famously based off the Pride events in Tel Aviv. So maybe the Israelis are not transphobic enough for him. We talk about a more local issue, which we do find very interesting. I suppose we should briefly touch on the absolute blinder that Sir Keir Starmer has played at the local elections in these past days. I've actually just booked an appointment at the optometrist because I am unable to see on account of the absolute blinder he has played at the polls.
Well, the
this
future's
week.
so bright, you don't need eyes to see it.
For anyone who missed it, although obviously local elections are something of a protest, but it is what got rid of Theresa May. It's what very much intensified the pressure on Jeremy Corbyn at the time. They absolutely fucked it. Reform did incredibly well, unbelievably well.
So Britain Elect, sort of like a polling aggregation Twitter account.
Yeah.
He does his own forecasts and stuff as well. I think typically he's pretty accurate. I think you're accurate. Last year, his prediction was that Reform would get 311 seats, Labour 334.
Yeah.
Obviously, the actual result was far off that. Reform got nearly 700. Labour got less than 100 council seats.
It's important to note Britain Elect's like fucking America Elects, which is run by some annoying fucking Canadian teenager who should give me the password to that account. Britain Elects is run by one of these annoying fucking briefcase electoralism nerds. He's a Labour councillor himself. He has famously ran into a lot of trouble for castigating Labour failures in certain districts as them being very Asian areas. He is on the payroll of the New Statesman, I believe.
He is, yeah. He does like election coverage for him.
New Statesman has reported on itself as historically being a paper staffed by agents of MI5. Now, you can find that in the pages of the New Statesman about the New Statesman. I'm not suggesting anything here. And also, many moons ago, Britain Elects banned me, or blocked me rather, one election night, for replying to every single update that he posted saying that Keir Starmer's failure to prosecute Jimmy Savile was all over the doorstep in this constituency tonight. So he can't take banter. And he had predicted Labour doing better than before. As an incredibly incumbent, right now, an incredibly unpopular incumbent government coming up to a year in office. He predicted that Labour would gain seats, that Reform would gain 311 seats, and that the Tories would lose a substantial margin. But in reality, Reform gained over double that. The Liberal Democrats overperformed their estimation. The Conservatives underperformed their estimation. And Labour, what fucking methodology does this boy use to phenologically, I believe that is how you say that word, which I learned in university, project the result where Labour gained fucking 300 more seats than they did. He posts bollocks to try and influence a atmosphere of positivity for a prospective good result for the party he is a representative of. My biggest problem with all of this fucking bullshit, as is my case with Aaron Bastani in Novara Media, who's married to a Labour councillor, and Britain Elects, which is run by a Labour councillor, is that all of these people, no matter how fucking ostensibly critical they are of Keir Starmer or the Labour Party, whoever else, their fucking mortgage repayments depend on Keir Starmer being and continuing to be Prime Minister. The results speak for themselves. Reform sweep everywhere. Aaron Banks, this fucking insane moron, I don't know if he's a billionaire, but he's very wealthy, emerald miner, Brexit
Can't even spell his own fucking name right.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous spelling of the name Aaron. He very nearly became, I think, mayor of Bristol, which should give you an idea of the kind of national popularity that Reform had. Previously, it was unheard of that Reform would achieve anything in a place like Bristol. Reform now are trying to target Scotland, which, since the security services have completely shattered the spine of their political environment, I'm sure they will eventually thrive in. There's a lot of very strange activity online by these anonymised accounts, all identical, espousing to be true Scotchmen who vote Reform and need reform. And there'll be a reform sweep. Even the New York Times, I believe, this week published an article. After 100 years, Britain's two-party political system may be crumbling. Nigel Farage's right-wing populist party, Reform UK, is presenting a serious challenge to the governing Labour Party and the opposition Conservatives. I guess maybe twice before in the history of British parliamentary democracy has one of them been replaced, one died and reborn. Never like this. If Nigel Farage gets his way, which I don't doubt the sheer incompetence of his two rivals he may well get, then he will have utterly decimated the power of the Labour Party and the Conservative Party in Parliament. Whether it ends up being a coalition with Reform and another party, the Conservatives, or even a hung Parliament would be a disaster for Keir Starmer. Famously, in 2010, Gordon Brown was trying to assemble a rainbow coalition of the Democratic Unionist Party and the Lib Dems and every tiny party, this bullshit coalition of every other party. Nigel Farage nominally has had two aims through his entire career. The second, pretty explicitly linked to his desire for the first. One was Britain's independence from the European Union. Achieved. The second was a switch from first past the post to proportional representation in all British elections. If his Reform Party failed to win a majority, that would be one of the conditions that a smaller party would trade with him. Question is, Nigel Farage, having destroyed the two-party system, would he be willing to even remotely entertain the idea of proportional representation? So he's already won. He's won beyond his wildest dreams. If the election was held today, Nigel Farage would have officially defeated, probably forever, the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. I don't think there'll be any coming back from that. And we would have to have a parliament for fucking 5 years where something like 400 out of 650 MPs were insane private sector lunatics, friends of Nigel Farage. It would be like if it couldn't happen, but it would be like if Trump got to individually pick every single Republican candidate and he just picked from guys that he knows. Because Reform loves to just run guys that Nigel Farage knows or is friends with. Dodgy business people, crooks, racists in many ways. This is a party that at the last election, though not a triviality, was often laughed at. A prospective Reform candidate was caught on hidden camera by Channel 4 at the last election, admitting to desecrating a mosque in the dead of night by burying a pig's head under the concrete. Again, if Nigel Farage gets a supermajority at the next election, you can be absolutely guaranteed that Thomas Skinner, the Bosch guy, will be an MP. That will happen.
I love
you get
that
all
video when he
sorts
was
of these crackheads
pissed up, making his fucking breakfast and nearly drops his infant child into a fucking scorching hot frying pan. Bosh! Made a fucking sarnie out of a 12-year-old.
He is very, very good at dog whistle, and so is Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is softened, weakened. We spoke about this before. Certainly his foreign policy, such that he was a libertarian before. I don't know what he is now, because I have maintained he appears like he is going to govern pretty much identically, sans the issue of Europe, to Tony Blair. Privatisation through the back door, lots of private investment initiatives. But he's not going to just completely axe the NHS in one. That's not the point. But he is the natural successor to a government like Starmer. Starmer forges the requisite conditions for his win. A reform health secretary is a natural successor to Wes Streeting, who is setting the stage for someone to entrench and proliferate the ownership of the NHS into the hands of BlackRock.
I've said this before, I think, and I have to wonder how much of it is intentional in terms of like the Labour Party's plan for the future. How much of it is like an intentional conspiracy, and how many of them are just uniquely stupid, thick bastards who don't realise the framework and the groundwork that they're laying. What seems to be the case is that after Corbyn's near victory, 2017, 2019, that genuinely scared the fuck out of the British political deep state.
They were never going to let that happen again.
They're never going to let that happen again. So I think what with the Labour Party is that as the only mainstream avenue for that kind of potential, destroy the party, get through all of these most horrifically unpopular policies and new laws and everything like that, you know, cut the last semblances of the social safety net, send all the fucking money you want to adventures abroad, Ukraine or Israel, just completely alienate every single normal person to a point where it's like it took years, again, of mass social murder and constant like flagrant corruption of the Tory party for them to lose the mandate of heaven. And Keir Starmer has done that in what, months? Less than a year? How much of that is intentional and how much of that is just these completely hapless fuckwits being pushed in a particular direction without them even realizing what they're being set up for? And yeah, in a few years' time, you're going to get the Reform Party sweeping. And I think part of the reason it did sweep, aside from this country being full of thick racist bastards, is that where does anyone go? Like the Lib Dems are always going to be kind of a joke party. Who gives a fuck about the Greens? They don't believe anything. There is no space for anything, even nominally left of centre, never mind an actual left-wing party.
It's completely intentional because these people like Nadia Whittome and Richard Bergen, they can be as critical as they want of Keir Starmer and the Labour Party is at the moment. But at the end of the day, they've still got like a Labour tunnel vision. You know, they agree fundamentally with Gordon Brown that the worst Labour government is better than any other government. Yeah. And so we can't do anything serious to jeopardise that. You know, we have to have a Labour government unless otherwise Nigel Farage will be Prime Minister. Never mind the fact that Keir Starmer is fucking pound stretching Nigel Farage. And so there's never going to be a Peace and Justice Party founded by Jeremy Corbyn. And Sarah Sultana is never going to defect to the Green Party because the Green Party are not the Labour Party. And the unions aren't going to pull their funding because they care far more about the Labour Party and about being accepted by the mainstream that's still going to hate them either way than even adopting the slightest bit of radicalism in their politics.
Although some of them have been let back in. And I imagine the rest have been given assurances. Ultimately, they will be let back in. Bergen and Zara Sultana haven't. But they have not quit the Labour Party. They are still waiting and trying to become Labour MPs. I don't watch fucking Prime Minister's Questions because I think you are an unbelievably boring cunt if you do that. Every now and then I see clips where Zara Sultana, a albeit suspended Labour MP, will ask a question to Keir Starmer, such as, is Britain aiding flights out of Cyprus for the Israeli Defence Forces? And every single time to Zara Sultana exclusively, because he has been advised to do so, Keir Starmer responds with one word answers. No, yes, I didn't. That's basically the entirety of how he speaks to him. I think Keir Starmer's a racist person, I don't doubt that. But it's also, he is angling for the support of Guardian reading morons. This amorphous and unstructured liberal voting bloc. There is a cohort of British electorate who believe that Keir Starmer is conducting a slow 8D chess, clandestine, through the back door reintroduction of Britain into the European Union. Despite everything that he said, despite all legislation, despite the fact that it's not possible, despite the fact that if it was done via popular vote, it would be rejected widely, despite the fact it would necessitate us adopting the euro, which no one wants to do. But they all believe that Keir Starmer is going to achieve this. And these are the same people who believe that someone like Zara Sultana is a foot soldier of Jeremy Corbyn and a representative of everything that is wrong with Britain. All of those independent MPs who are significantly more moral and courageous and virtuous than Zara Sultana, who's still begging for the Labour whip. They are referred to in the media as the MPs for Gaza. There is an overt racism towards them. If someone with my exact ideological beliefs was in Parliament as an independent and they were being propagandised by the government of the party that I am a part of and the government-friendly media, I would quit that party. I would also quit that party when its leader endorses the Commission of War Crimes in Gaza on national radio. I would also quit that party when its leader counsels the incumbent government to airstrike Yemen. There are a million other points during Keir Starmer's tenure. The child benefit cuts, the push towards euthanasia, the austerity regime that rivals or surpasses David Cameron and George Osborne's. They are the apex social murderers domestically, and abroad, they are mass genocidal lunatics. This country is governed by fucking BlackRock, BAE Systems. I would want absolutely nothing to do with that if I was a person of any kind of conscience, which evidently she is not.
The thing is, Zara Sultana never be the foot soldier of Jeremy Corbyn, because nobody could be the foot soldier of Jeremy Corbyn, because all the love in the world to him, he's weak, Yeah. He did not understand how to combat not just, never mind the state and finance and everything against him, but his own party, Labour Together, Labour Students, Labour First, the Fabians, they all openly campaigned against him. And then you had groups like the Campaign for Labour Party Democracy, who wanted things like mandatory re-election, something he supported, that he sidelined. The anti-Semitism stuff was allowed to flourish by the party and by the media figures like, Navarra and Owen Jones. And they say that the right wing of the Labour Party outmaneuvered him, but that's not true, because to be outmaneuvered, you have to put up a fight in the first place. Yeah. And despite how close they might have come to power in 2017, Corbyn and all these people around him, they've been complacent for 10 years, despite the fact that, a solid 15-20% of this country, regardless of all the jokes about Turf Island and whatever, there's a solid 20% of this country that fundamentally agrees with Jeremy Corbyn's politics. And these people like Diane Abbott and Richard Bergen could just pull their fucking finger out. There'd be a genuine socialist movement that could oppose Keir Starmer.
Diane Abbott is beyond salvation. I mean, she will gladly be racially abused, attacked and weaponized and used as a cudgel. I believe after the election, when Keir Starmer had won, all of the new intake entered the parliament. Rishi Sunak stood caretaker Tory leader, and he said how delighted he was to see the mother of the house, Diane Abbott, in her rightful place. And he criticised the way that Keir Starmer treated her. Now, him and his party, and I don't doubt him himself, ridiculed this woman as a buffoon, but also a terrorist sympathiser. And as soon as it was convenient, used it to bash Keir Starmer over the head with. Because, of course, it's racist the way that Keir Starmer's treated her. It's racist the way that many people in the party have treated her. It's racist the way that Keir Starmer has used and weaponised and utilises a force field against criticism. The problem we have at present with electoral politics in Britain is that the absolute ceiling of what someone like Zara Sultana could do is defect to the Greens. Well, what's that? Go look at the Green Manifesto 2024 about Israel.
Yeah.
Or about fucking NATO. This party, they love to call it in the South, but it is true. It's Tories on fucking bikes. Green Party Manifesto 2024 might as well have been written by literally NATO itself, or Paul Mason. As for Corbyn, he's wasted so much time. I will always respect and have a soft spot for Jeremy Corbyn, even though I see his many faults, and it's the case for many, 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 many people who like Corbyn. He should have purged the fucking lot of them day one, every single one of them. He should have been ruthless, but the Corbyn paradox is that Jeremy Corbyn doesn't become leader if he is the type of person who would. Jeremy Corbyn only gets the requisite amount of nominations to get on the ballot because people viewed him as a cuddly, eccentric quasi-national treasure who would widen the scope of debate. And only after he won did they realise the terrible thing that they had done. And they rigged it in every single possible way, year after year after that, to prevent that ever happening again. And now, because since Starmer, as leader of the Labour Party, with his new General Secretary, passed at conference an increased threshold for getting on the ballot at leadership elections, it is mathematically impossible, absent some serious generosity from people who, let's just say, are not known for it, for a left-wing candidate to even be on the ballot. And this has been obvious since 2020. Anyone who was supporting this fucking dog shit party after that point is a moron, or just fucking trying to nurture a nice little media career for themselves. And I have no bloody time for it. Jeremy Corbyn ostensibly is preparing to launch a party called Collective, but the Corbyn leadership was characterised by him being surrounded by fucking young,
worm tongues,
hairless, Oxbridge worm tongues, your Aaron Bastani types, who had managed to dig themselves into quite senior advisory roles and would constantly rope him into these very obvious booby traps about anti-Semitism. I remember, for example, there was a story about how Jeremy Corbyn wanted to articulate that there was a hierarchy of racism wherein Jewish people's concerns, which were smaller in number because of the smaller proportion of Jewish people, were massively more considered, massively more resources were spent on them, and massively more inches of newspaper columns were spent reporting on them than those of black people. And his cabinet said, no, we shouldn't be doing that. We can't be doing that. Why is a veritable fact. So that alongside these yuppie, careerist, young Oxbridge graduate, these Politico wanks, but they were also infecting the ears of the people around Jeremy Corbyn that he considered trustworthy and senior counsel, like John McDonnell, like Emily Thornberry, who were just telling him that unless you run exclusively on the fucking issue of the European Union and rejoining it, we are going to lose, which has proven to be the wrongest thing that has ever happened ever, and the basis of which comes from these fucking shadow campaigns fronted in the media by Peter Mandelson and funded by all of the biggest merchants of death. But what do I know? The Green Party Manifesto 2024, Israel and Palestine. What we know, the Hamas murders of hundreds of Israelis were horrific, but so too are the war crimes of Israeli forces. What we will do, we will push for the fighting to stop, trying harder to get the people captured by Hamas, called hostages, released. Make Israel give back Palestinian land. Equal rights for Israelis and Palestinians. Giving money to the UN aid organization again. Is this run by a child? Is this just very, very strange, plain language? And that's all of it. That's the entirety of it. This is the most left-wing electoral vehicle in Britain.
And because there's no left-wing movement organised, after 2019, people who generally are pro-Palestine and, socialists are being forced into this party because, as awful as it is, this is probably the best alternative they've got.
To conclude that part, I would just like to say, yes, Nigel Farage will be Prime Minister. He'll get an unbelievable majority. Fascism in the country, he'll probably get them fantastic. He'll be the Royals. They'll do whatever they want. Couldn't have happened without Keir Starmer, but it is also the express purpose of Keir Starmer and Starmerism as a project. And I also believe that whatever Farage will front is also going to be a transition to something much worse. Every waking second, you see the Overton window slip further and further and further and further and further, right? And there is no opposition to it. Life was genuinely better when, even though he wasn't in government, Jeremy Corbyn was in opposition, because you could get the government to adopt policies just by expressing the moral stance and converting people in the court of public opinion. The idea that Nigel Farage would become Prime Minister was utterly laughable 5 years ago. It was not possible because it would necessitate the complete an entire destruction of the British electoral system. And he's about to do it solely because Keir Starmer is such a viscerally repulsive man. Fair play to him. Starmer's played a blinder. He's an ordinary man doing an extraordinary job. This is our first working class prime minister. He shared a bunk bed with his brother when he was younger.
He didn't even have Sky TV.
He had a broken window in his house. He remembers seeing his mum cry over the phone bill. That's unbelievable that a man who basically grew up like Oliver Twist is now in government. It's incredible. And on the West Streeting NHS point, West Streeting is also a transitionary figure. All of the previous fucking 14 years of Conservative governments, every single senior figure in that government, including Jeremy Hunt, wrote explicit and direct, published books, guides on how to get rid of the NHS. And they have followed it to a T. The idea, of course, is to starve the bear, make it unusable, broken, unfeasible, make people resent it. I resent it. I love the NHS. I despise it. It kills so many people just through incompetence, mismanagement, underfunding. And of course, I can't blame the individual staff. I hate it. And I think that the only way that it will ever work again is if it is completely liquidated and rebuilt. But to conclude this episode, we would like to talk about a curious event that happened locally to me. On Wednesday, a man from Leeds, armed with a crossbow, an air gun, a blank fire gun, a BB pellet gun, a CO2 gun, a pair of combat gloves, and a so-called Brooklyn Basher, the unbreakable baseball bat, tried to commit a largely unsuccessful mass terror attack in Leeds, targeting a famous local pub crawl called the Otley Run, which is mostly a place for students and people who are way too old to be dressing up in fancy dress, where they go to dress up in fancy dress and get drunk. The attacker was the 38-year-old Owen Lawrence.
That's a fucking rough 38.
He has now succumbed to self-inflicted injuries and died. Luckily,
just to be a bit morbid, I mean, I don't know much about air guns and stuff, so Jacob might be able to help. How the fuck did he kill himself with those things?
I know.
Genuine question. I don't understand how he killed himself.
I don't know. I mean, the crossbow could kill him, I guess.
How do you fire a crossbow at your own head? I fired a crossbow. I can't imagine how you'd go about shooting one at yourself.
Was it a wound to his head? I'm looking at the pictures of the weapons that he has.
I don't know if any of those air guns is sufficiently powerful enough with like steel balls or bullets. Maybe like Israeli style right behind his ear, like through the soft fucking, like, and just let it rattle around in his skull. But I'd be surprised if even that could penetrate. Maybe he was just shooting himself in the head over and over until something went through.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was smart enough to, know exactly where to shoot himself with a BB gun either.
No, he does not look smart at all. This is a guy who very clearly is not older.
Yeah, I mean, there's some kind of psychological profile or...
Oh, it's almost kind of sad when he talks about, like, out for Weatherspoons with my mum having a gorgeous meal.
This guy committed this incredibly unsuccessful terror attack in Otley. 2 women. One had quite intensive surgery, although is recovering fine now. The other one has been discharged from hospital, I believe. He wrote a completely half-assed manifesto on Facebook, the totality of which is him naming the event, and then he lists his targets. Targets students, nightclub goers, pub crawlers, Otley Run participants, basically all the same thing, those. And then his other targets include society, humanity, human race, neurotypicals, and police if I need to. He describes the attack type, or the intended attack type, as a spree-killing, mass murder, terrorist attack, revenge, misogynistic rage. He misspelt misogynistic. He wrote misogynic rage, homicide/suicide, but the location is Otley Road. Perpetrator's name is Owen Oz Lawrence. His ethnicity is white British. His religious views is agnostic.
All white English.
Yeah. Basically, the entire motive is summed up in 2 sentences. He says his political views are reactionary, with a small L libertarian sympathy, but he has also explored far-right ideas by reading Brenton Tarrant's 74-page manifesto, who is, of course, the shooter at the mosque in Christchurch in New Zealand. This person accompanied that manifesto, which must be less than 200 words, with photos of all his, mostly embarrassing weapons. Like
a BB gun mass shooting
is black and orange, just for a visual.
He uploaded 2 pictures of it, and one of them is just completely motion blur. It looks like he's falling as he's taking it.
If you look on the wood, he's also attempted to carve a swastika.
Yeah.
But it's just piss poor.
He really didn't put much effort into understanding these things or actually committing to an ideology. Chronologically, if you look at his Facebook feed, going back to August 2024, he is posting a shirtless picture of him with a sander caption, "First thing sand down." He has a big beard, sort of neutral. The same day, finally done. Achievement unlocked. Ceiling painted in the spare bedroom at my mum's flat. A week later, playing football with my nephew, and he's got a head injury. Maybe that is the cause of it. And then, for weeks on end, consecutive posts of him getting this disgusting t-shirt off Amazon.
That selfie he took outside that castle where he's got his incredibly long, skinny arms and then his like his skinny fat belly and this hideous shirt.
And it says Deus Vult, which I do believe is Latin for if God wills it or God has willed it. And it is a hideous, hideous shirt. And he posts selfie after selfie after selfie. And then slowly he just starts peppering in these YouTube videos about mass shootings. He captions one natural selector 89, and then he starts getting more and more progressively negative. After his new t-shirt fiasco, which took up approximately 2 weeks of his life, he starts seeing black. You'd think with the end approaching, I would try to live life to the fullest, but I'm depressed at the prospect of actually dying. I can't be bothered doing much except what I need to do. Then he posts a jack-o'-lantern on Halloween, and then he posts... A month later, after a little break, I have come to the conclusion that there is no point in saying I'm quitting any addiction of any kind unless I think first how I'm going to do it, and it has to work. Followed by, all life on planet can get stricken with physical diseases, but only humans seem to get mental illnesses. Does society make us sick?
He's Joker posting now.
Yeah, that's just r/atheism bullshit.
We live in a society.
He talks about attending Narcotics Anonymous in Leeds and feeling only hatred, which I imagine if you attend Narcotics Anonymous in Leeds, it is a horrific experience because all of those people will just be complete cunts. And then he follows that immediately by literally the same day. He posts that, I only felt hatred at my Narcotics Anonymous meeting today, and then immediately posts a YouTube video that is called The Massacre by an Incel. Then a few shots of 9 Inch Nails merchandise, some more high school shootings, except he begins capturing them, "Rest in peace, bro." And then on January 31st this year, he decides to give his biggest revelation into the type of person this is, this failed mass terror attacker. Jacob, would you like to list what he hates / what he doesn't like?
I would be delighted to. It's an eclectic mix, to say the least. Gender equality, Hollyoaks, bisexual relationships.
That sounds like you, Jacob.
Soap operas. Yeah, maybe this guy isn't so bad after all. Homosexual rapists.
I love that he hates bisexual relationships.
Just broadly.
But homosexual relationships are fine as long as they're consensual.
It has to be consensual.
Yeah.
Career criminals, knobheads, Islamic extremists, feminists of all 4 waves, feminoids, X Factor, pop idol.
Most people, X Factor hasn't been on air for fucking years. Pop Idol as a franchise must have fucking finished 30 years ago. This is the type of thing that you hear fucking like 70-year-old women complain about. Oh, I hate that. Oh, don't you hate that Pop Idol and that? Oh, don't you hate that Gary Glitter?
Well, considering the only person he seems to hang out with is his like elderly mother, that's probably where he gets all of his opinions from.
His mum does give him some nice drip every now and then. She's got some great curtains, I think.
And he goes on, celebrity bullshit, virtue signaling, dumb people, fat people, normies, female empowerment, the great replacement, and society.
Fatties, normies, and feminoids.
But the cursed evil bisexuals.
31 comments and a large proportion of laugh reacts forced him into posting things that he loves.
I think they all came in the short period of time between people finding out who he was and then Facebook taking his account down.
Yeah, I think so too. But I did enjoy looking and seeing where he was getting engagement. This is a phenomenon of person. I'm sure you can find countless amounts of them, anyone you went to fucking secondary school, who are just screaming into the void. Nobody is reading or interacting to anything they say, such that you can begin out posting one day about playing football with your nephew and painting the spare bedroom in your mum's flat. And then suddenly you're saying rest in peace to mass shooters and posting about how much you hate bisexuals and feminists and virtue signaling and fatties and the great replacement theory.
Don't forget, of course, Hollyoaks.
And of course, Hollyoaks. He ran a sequel post that same night.
Yeah, this one's just as good.
Saying what he does love, which begins with, I love negative/positive freedom, rationality, family, political power, just enough money to get my tasks done, intrapersonal intelligence, existentialism, reactionaries. I love flirting with far-right ideas while not being far-right. I love self-awareness. He loves the philosophy of Fight Club. Educational books, documentaries, military history, school shooters. Anders Breivik, Eric Harris, Dylan Klebold, Pekka, Eric Orvanen, Randy Stair, Vladislav Rosilakov, Ethan Blair Miller. These are all just mass shooters. Journaling, meditation, self-improvement, goal setting, agnostics, belief in God, Western philosophy, political science, mutual aid groups, new metal.
New metal, of course.
The band Disturbed, who I do believe is that fucking band led by that fat cunt goth who absolutely destroyed the Sound of Silence. No?
Oh,
is
yeah,
that
was horrific.
He loves Within Temptation, Natural Selection, hack and slash games like Devil May Cry.
Oh, no.
And the concept of the patriarchy. Now, in between this and his next few posts, he posts a few selfies. He says he attended a mindfulness meditation group that lasted for an hour, and it felt good to find peace while connecting with a larger life perspective. And for this horrifically failed mass terror attacker, on the 7th of February, he did the political spectrum test where you land on the political compass. And I think if you tried to take this test and get bang on in the middle, you couldn't do better than him. He is pretty much the exact definition of a centrist. This is a centrist terrorist. This is a politically homeless centrist terrorist.
I'd be amazed to find out what the actual answers were to each question to land exactly in the middle.
Yeah, it must be so hard.
The position he has on there is roughly equivalent to what that website considers the SNP to be.
Yeah, so this was an SNP terror attack on the streets of Leeds. After Valentine's Day, it's no coincidence, he starts being radicalised by mostly like incel bullshit, men going their own way. He posts, when women choose their partners, I believe 7 out of 10 they get it wrong, which costs them, both them and society. Maybe this is one reason why society is degenerating. Then some more school shooters, the wannabe school shooters who met on Roblox. Then a post saying he doesn't identify with the far right, although he did flirt with their ideas a bit. At present, in the year of our Lord 2025, I am without a radical ideology, not sure what to believe. There is nothing worse than being agnostic about most things, although in times of need, a belief in God as I understand him does tend to help. So you're not an agnostic, then are you? And then immediately, I've come to the conclusion that dating apps like Tinder are in fact designed for women only, and the app itself is like a buffer between men and women. Same day, men going their own way till I die. Me and the secular world have never clicked. Men going their own ways, like a Andrew Tate incel fucking movement thing where you neg or completely admonish or remove women from your life as something to be pursued, but rather something, if necessary, to be conquered. And in the final month before the attack, he posted simply 5 posts. I've heard it said that men objectify women, but women can see into the soul of a man, which he posted just before about to have breakfast at Wetherspoons with my mum, and then new hairstyle, and then a big thank you to my mum for helping me with my flat today. Really appreciate the curtains. And then a picture of him holding a baseball bat, after which his next post is the location, intended targets, attack type, his name, his nickname, his ethnicity, his nationality, his religious views, and his political views, and all the weapons he will use in what must be probably the dumbest terror attack, the worst executed terror attack by the stupidest man to ever wield a gun. It's so incredibly poorly planned, radicalized in a way he can't even articulate himself. By third or fourth hand Facebook pages regurgitating screenshots of subreddits, which are screenshots of fucking 4chan. It is this just centipede of chauvinistic, misogynistic, incel bullshit fed to him so far from the original source that he doesn't even access the terminology or any of the basic tenets of the ideology other than he hates women. Thank fuck he failed to kill anyone in the proud city of Leeds on the Otley Run.
It's not just good, obviously, that no one died. I think doubly so because I think it's incredibly unfair to be killed by a man like this.
Yeah.
Like, such a fuckwit, such an embarrassing, weird little fuckwit.
There is a massive uptick in Britain of white incel, misogynistic violence against women. 2 or 3 years ago, there was an individual from Plymouth who killed his mother and others with a shotgun for killing himself, who was an incel on Reddit, posting all of this nonsense. This man was posting all this bollocks publicly on Facebook. I don't doubt he was posting it on other forums as well. But MI5 and the security services have said they were not aware of him whatsoever. Now, this is something that perennially confuses me when people talk about. When there's a terror attack and MI5 say they weren't aware of it, I mostly disbelieve that entirely. And my most recent evidence of this is that in 2022, MI5 were, I believe, charged an extremely young woman. I think she was 15, maybe 14, under the Terrorism Act. She had been radicalized by a neo-Nazi in America via Discord. She had been in Britain, I believe, abused by her American stepdad or partner of her mother, who was also a neo-Nazi. And via Discord, a 20 or so year old man, a neo-Nazi in America, groomed her into complete mental submission. She would boast of her obsession with Hitler. She built a shrine to Hitler in her bedroom.
That's romantic.
Yeah. She spoke about slitting people's throats. She told friends.
No, that's not as romantic.
And her mother that she intended to bomb a synagogue. All of these opinions were inserted into her mind by a 20-some-year-old neo-Nazi from America on Discord while she was 14. We'll talk about this phenomena in another episode in the future from a different perspective. Ultimately, MI5, the British Security Services, dropped charges against her because they realised she had been exploited and groomed. She was removed from her school, removed from her family, and placed in a children's home. And they were extensively monitoring her online activity, her messages. Indeed, they did not intervene while she was being groomed. They did not intervene while she was having these conversations. And they very clearly did not intervene pursuant to any messages or correspondence she made that might suggest she's going to kill herself. MI5 were tracking a teenage girl, a victim of international grooming by an organization of American neo-Nazis. They were monitoring every keystroke, every click, and there is no possible way that they were not privy to her mental state when 6 months after the charges were dropped, 5 months after the charges were dropped in foster care or a children's home, she killed herself. The idea to me that a 14-year-old girl can start saying Nazi bullshit on Discord and be tracked such that she is formally charged with terror offences makes it difficult for me to believe that someone, an insane, violent, misogynistic, chauvinistic incel, would-be extremist, would-be terrorist, isn't on their radar. And I don't think they intervene. I don't think they would intervene in any circumstance. I also think that they have a lot of assets in these circles. I can't verify any of that. I can't verify the quantity. I can't verify the frequency. I can't verify how much of it is agitated, how much of it is real, how much of it is facilitated, how much of it is ignored. But all I know is that since MI5 has a budget of fucking over £3 billion a year, and MI6 equal, more, whatever, all of the different branches of police, of every single tier, echelon of the security services is funded through the fucking arse. I refuse to believe that they didn't know a guy like this was prospectively going to carry out some kind of attack. And I think they are lucky, or maybe in their eyes, deeply unlucky, that people didn't actually die from this. I've long said that at some point during Starmerism, they'll do another false flag terror attack, because sometimes they just get bored, I guess. But I can't believe that with the budget that they have, the mass surveillance that is pervasive in every corner of this country, that everywhere you are being recorded, all of your messages, text messages, DMs, all of it is just instantly accessible to these people. And if you think otherwise, you're a fucking moron.
I mean, it's literally been proven to be the case that they can do that, and they are doing that.
No way that they are unable to set up a little alert where
a very simple keyword system. The type of shit that he paused should have gotten
exactly
and euthanized.
One of the most clear-cut kind of examples of somebody that's going to commit an attack like this.
He's pausing machines going, rest in peace, bro.
It couldn't be more obvious. He's openly saying, I am flirting with the idea of being a violent insurrectionary incel.
This podcast is one of the only serious journalistic projects in the country. I know for a fact this is a man who has been mentally ill for his entire life. The idea that they wouldn't have been tracking him and seeing these posts is ridiculous.
I think time again, these people with disturbed mental states are perhaps pushed in a certain direction to believe certain things. Their paranoia exacerbated, and they are encouraged by handlers or well-placed internet guidance into doing things like this. And it is a flip of a coin here, because the other alternative is that this guy ends up being remarkable at a crossbow, and he kills a shitload of people. In Bradford, we had the crossbow cannibal 10, 12 years ago or whatever. He killed a lot of women. The Yorkshire Ripper. These types of things. They exist only because of police, quote-unquote, incompetence. Now, that is the most generous possible interpretation. Crossbow cannibal in Bradford. Caught on CCTV, dragging a corpse in a black bin bag, and he looks at the CCTV camera and he sticks his middle finger up. What are you going to do about it, I guess he's saying. And they didn't do anything. They caught him too late. When he got into court, he just shouted white supremacist slogans the whole time.
It has to be either them intentionally prodding this along and allowing it to happen. And I think the nature of this country compared to the United States is that we're very good at burying those secrets, whereas the FBI and such in America are almost quite brazen about the fact that they deliberately egg this on and find the right targets. Like, they talk about it quite openly. So either they're deliberately fostering and encouraging and creating these situations, or they are so wildly fucking inept and useless that you have to, again, ask yourself, why the fuck do they have any power or money then? If they can't do the absolute bare minimum why should they even exist?
Yeah.
They're either actively encouraging these murders or they're too shit to stop it.
Yeah.
We don't need them either way.
But MI5, MI6 are beyond reproach. I say every time I get in front of a microphone that until 1995, the head of MI6 was an anonymous role. Can you imagine if the head of the CIA until 1995 was an anonymous role? It's unthinkable. There are probably maybe 3 books of any kind of substance about the history of MI6. They were all written by insiders with the permission and help of MI6. The 77th Brigade, set up in 2017, nominally activated during COVID to counter disinformation. And what they are doing, in their own admission, is running networks of accounts to influence public opinion, nominally for the public good, on social media. They promoted their upstart during the early days of COVID as a sort of safeguard for the internet to prevent disinformation about vaccines or lockdowns or whatever else. But personally, I didn't see much of that. And I've seen a lot of fucking dodgy activity on the fucking British political internet since 2017, intensified after 2020. I've seen a lot of fucking anonymous accounts espousing to be from fucking Scotland and claiming that they're fucking lifelong fucking unionist, would-be reform voter, transphobe, of all these different flavours of extremely dodgy and manufactured in popularity political persuasions. And I also remember that in 2017, there was something that happened that the political establishment were not very happy about. And they wanted to henceforth influence the national conversation and indeed the digital conversation about anything political in Britain towards a certain end. And I think they succeeded at it. And I think when you have to see something like this, a botched terror attack at best, you have to wonder why this was allowed to happen. These are serious questions. You know, if MI5, MI6 want to kill us, please just get it over with. We're going to try doing an episode about Satanism in a few weeks, specifically the Order of Nine Angles and Ryan Fleming. I would like to finish this episode the fuck off. I should also say, though, there's a quick little joyous one for anyone listening.
Yeah, it was quite lighthearted, this.
Yeah, this was a lighthearted episode, but I've got a lighthearted ending for you. Donald Trump is going to ostensibly make it so any lawyers involved in the International Criminal Court arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu unable to enter the US. That would bar Amal Clooney, the wife of George Clooney, and from entry to the United States. Keir Starmer is a close personal friend of many years of Amal Clooney, having worked at the same law firm together, and he gushed about them, and he talked about a very boozy night with George, and he has been walking a very tightrope about the arrest warrant and Amal Clooney's involvement. I, for one, am personally ecstatic to see him squirm and squirm and squirm and squirm and ultimately betray what is undoubtedly a sincerely held personal friend of his to win the affection of the fattest, ugliest, most demented, obvious paedophile, bloodthirsty, tiny hands, probably got a rotten cock, evil president in the history of the world. Maybe that's not true. Obama did pretty bad, but he's up there. And with that, I would like to conclude this episode, which I do believe was episode 9 of Scroungers podcast. We have, you may have noticed, been banking them and doing more and more and more and more. We are hoping to get an episode out on Kashmir soon, amongst many other topics, and a litany of guests. We're going to try and get them out twice a week. One of them will be premium. There's probably some dodgy piracy feed. If that exists, someone please publicize it to the poor people. If not, email me. I think our email is scroungerscast@gmail.com. Truly can't afford this. If you're truly a poor scum like us, then be my guest. Steal it all. Have every last fucking drop of it, because you shouldn't be spending money on this bullshit. But if you have the money to support us, it is the joy of our lives to provide this show for you, and we are eternally grateful for your support, including if you are a free listener who is subscribed on the Patreon. That is an immense help to us, and none of this would be possible without you. we hope to massively increase our output.
We're in mass production mode now.
Yeah, we're churning them out as a tribute to you, as a token of our gratitude.
As an expression of our love to all of you.
And on that note, I have been the loathed and disgraced Twitter user, Eyup Lovely, from the World Wide Web, joined by my mischievous gay co-host, the hapless homo, Jacob Venom Snake. Jacob, please say goodbye.
The most hopeless homosexual you've ever known happily says goodbye tonight. And
fan favourite co-host, Dave number 7, who I am simply begging to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
See you later, everyone.
Bye.